Hi, everyone. Welcome to the George Coaching Podcast. I'm Jimmy George and I'm here with Paula George. In each episode, we are exploring practical insights around nutrition, movement, stress, recovery, and mindset, along with real conversation about growth, leadership, and creating a healthy, meaningful lifestyle. Whether you're navigating a new chapter, refining your performance, or simply want to feel better in your body and life, you're in the right place. Before we get started, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel or follow us wherever you are listening to our podcast. You can also join our mailing list on our website. But before we do that, let's get into today's conversation. Today's conversation is called Nutrition Simplified: What Actually Matters for Energy, Longevity, and Performance. Let's start off, Paula, with the definition.
Well, we did a webinar for some of our clients last week, and it was all around nutrition. It was all around energy. And I came up with a couple of definitions for energy. One was the strength and vitality required for sustained physical and mental activity, or simply the ability to sustain work. So there were two definitions that we found for energy. And I guess what we're going to have a chat about today is what actually matters for energy in terms of nutrition.
It's good to start off with a definition, I think, because we understand where we're going to go and where we're heading with this conversation. Let's start off by going over what influences us over nutrition and over food, and over our choices that we make around food. The first thing that we came to, and social media dominates our minds. It dominates how we are made to think about food, and that's the first thing that will change a generation in their decision making over nutrition. I can definitely go over a couple of stories actually that I've had with my food. And when my energy needs have been really, really high, I always go back to sport. They're different now as I'm not as athletic as I was. Back in, I think it must have been around 1995, I remember being an endurance cyclist, and I'd gone to my local cycling club and been there for about a year or so. And somebody brought along this brand new concept of a product which was to give you energy while you're cycling, and it was an energy gel, and they were handing them out. And I wish I could remember the name of the brand. I really can't, but I remember the packet really clearly. It was a clear plastic sleeve, had red branding on the outside, and it had a gunk inside, and couldn't believe that was actually being punted as a product that you would use for sport. And I remember using it and trialing it, and just remember thinking it was disgusting. It was a horrible consistency in my mouth. Didn't feel any energy off of it, and it was just at the time it was ridiculous. And fast forward into particularly my cycling career later on, and definitely triathlon career, and I used energy gels all the time, and they were very different. They've changed again now. So I think that food has definitely evolved over that time. I also remember during that period, the mid-90s, when my dear coach, Paul Woodman, was a cyclist into an athlete. And at the time, nutrition was very, very undervalued, and we didn't know a lot about it. But so we did what worked. There was no messing. We just did what worked. And we used to do 2-hour endurance rides and carry a Mars bar in a, and just a bit of a dip, you would eat your Mars bar. And it was great because it gave you sugar, it lifted you up, and it got you through the training session. Now we know that if you were to have sugar, you get a big lift and then you get a big drop. So when we look at that, I would probably last about an hour before I needed food. I was very young and I needed so many calories, so I kind of got away with it. But that bar would get me to the end of the ride, and then afterwards I would have a big dip because I was coming off of the sugar. So I think that when we look at how we're marketed to, and products particularly, is really influential over how we eat and how we make decisions around food. I then went on to using the classic Graham O'Brien. I've heard Alistair Brownlee talk about this. I still do it today. Is that a pre-training ride would be toast with jam and butter. And Graham O'Brien would carry a jam sandwich in his back pocket in some silver foil, and that would have been his Mars bar. So it can be really, really simple, and it can be very, very basic. Paul, can you think of any times through your career where you maybe used nutrition that maybe we don't use today in your.
Yeah, just thinking about what you were saying there about how sports nutrition has changed. I can go back even further. I was swimming in the 70s and the 80s, and I don't remember any sports nutrition at all. I can recall, in fact, what reminded me of it was I was in our local pharmacy yesterday, and on the counter, I saw some boxes of dextrose energy tablets. And that was the extent of it when I was swimming. If you really felt you wanted something, and I can't remember if I ever felt any benefit from it. It wasn't something that I really thought about to sort of record or think about or monitor, but it was dextrose energy tablets, and we kind of ate them like sweets because we didn't know anything else, what to do. And we certainly didn't have access to the sports scientists and nutritionists that are available in sports science now. And I know that nutrition and fuel is marketed in a very different way now to athletes, to when I was in my swimming career. So when I was swimming, I mean, food was just fuel. I was very fortunate that my mum cooked from scratch, so we had really healthy food. I had a dad who was a footballer referee, had a brother who was a cricketer. So people were in and out all the time, and my mum somehow managed it. I mean, I was in and out training twice a day, sometimes 3 times a day. And she managed to put food on the table for all of us, and it was pretty nutritious as far as I remember. And I don't ever remember feeling depleted of energy at all. And I also remember there were 2 things. On Sunday mornings, if we hadn't been competing, we'd have a 3-hour training session, 1 hour of dry, what we called land training. So conditioning, or we'd do cross-country running, or we'd do basketball. So there'd be some dry land training, and then we would go into the pool for 2 hours. So when I got home for Sunday lunch, I was absolutely ravenous. And again, I don't recall that we would have any nutrition during the session. I don't recall that we had even bottles of water on the side of the pool at that point. And I would go home absolutely ravenous, and there'd be a roast dinner, and I would eat the roast dinner. My mum used to make rice puddings, but she'd put them in a casserole dish. And the rest of my family would have a portion of rice pudding, and then my mum would give me the casserole dish because I was so hungry, and my energy needs were so great that I could eat the rest of the rice pudding, and I did. So there was clearly something in that I needed. But it wasn't until I started doing triathlon that I was exposed to sports nutrition in the way it's now marketed. And I mean, the choice was massive. So yeah, that's my recollection of sports or energy and nutrition and food when I was training as a swimmer through my triathlon career to now. And I think, the space for advertising food, nutrition and energy products is huge.
There's some great stories, and obviously there are situations where it's very high demand in your energy needs. And what we're going to do now is we're going to try and make nutrition really simple, because it can be very complicated, but we just want to cover the basics and just go over the real simple parts of nutrition. So we've talked about some stories about where your energy demands are really, really high. And what I think we're about to talk about is where the lines have got a bit blurred. So if you're not got a massive demand on your body for energy, and we're talking about living a very general day, maybe where the energy demands are low, these next things might make you consider whether you need them in your life or not. So we've got challenges that people will face. The first one is social media, and a lot of claims and a lot of marketing that comes from social media. The reason we say that is because there's no filter on it. You can say what you want, you can put it out there, and that's great in some situations. But if you're searching for information, is that a place where you want to get your information from, and what is the motive behind the information that you're receiving on social media? The next one is energy drinks. So I can't walk into a shop, I'm sure now anybody can walk into a shop, without you seeing really, really high energy from caffeine or from sugar, very marketed product, as in the colors, as in the branding, towards your needs. So that everything is designed to market to you, to sell to you. The next one we've got is coffee culture. Just grab a coffee, walking along with your coffee cup. We love a coffee, but when we're talking about giving yourself energy, that is also marketed to us. And then the sales of sugary products, as in snacks, as in quick food. It, we've got 4 there, which everybody will see pretty much every day of your life. Paul, have you got any reflections on them 4?
Well, I was just sort of thinking about the title of this podcast, and it's about simplifying nutrition in terms of energy, longevity, and performance. And sales of sugary, caffeinated energy drinks and products. Yeah, I mean, they're marketed that they give you energy, that they raise your performance. And yes, they might do that in the short term, but we now know, and we talked about it on our webinar last week, that evidence is now emerging that long-term sustained use of those products is actually not beneficial. So as far as longevity is concerned, they're not actually that good for us. And there's long-term health effects that are starting to emerge from long-term users. I think, with social media, yeah, there's a lot going out there. We're on social media. You have to be aware of what people's motivations are on social media. So, yeah, I mean, I agree there are challenges out there and we're bombarded with information, and it's actually navigating that information and working out what is actually going to be most beneficial and what is going to benefit you long term and for performance, long term health, which is what we're about.
It's a great point because the sugary drinks, the caffeine is a short-term fix, isn't it? If you want to be up for 30 minutes or so, it's going to do the job. But like you say, longevity, is that a good thing for your body to be experiencing over a long period of time? So if you did that every day for weeks or months or years, what is that effect going to be on the longevity of your body? So the examples we gave were one-off disciplines. You might do that, a few times a week for a 5-year career or a 10-year career, and that would be that. And even that is quite enough for the body. But if we're doing this day in, day out for your adult life, there's probably some other choices that we could make.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
now we've looked at some of the challenges that people face, the instant ones. Let's go through our 3 recommendations for simple nutrition. So the first one is buy and cook fresh food as much as you can and avoid ultra processed foods. So why are we saying that one as our first one, Paula?
Well, as I say, I mean, I was very fortunate. I grew up in a household where food was cooked from scratch with fresh ingredients. And again, there are health issues linked with ultra processed food. And generally, I would say, if you pick up an apple in a farm shop or a supermarket, there's generally not that many ingredients in an apple. I mean, we're not going to talk about farming practices here, but in terms of ingredients and nutrition, if you can look for foods that have the least amount of ingredients labeled, so, a piece of fruit or veg is not going to have many other ingredients labeled in it. And if you are really time crunched and you have to buy something that is processed or packaged, then look at the label and just check how long the list of ingredients is, because the longer the list of ingredients, the more processing has probably happened. Buy and cook fresh food as and when possible. It would be certainly one tip that I would give and do give.
Yeah, absolutely. And fresh is really important as well, isn't it? The longer a vegetable is out of the ground, the less nutrients it has. So the quicker it's out, as soon as you eat it out of the ground, the better nutritionally it is for you. And we can loop back round to marketing as well. Colourful marketing, branding, things being marketed for a long period of time at you, so you buy them. Can think of some fast foods that do that, and it's all processed. But there's always a downside to that process, isn't there? Preservatives or salts or colorings, all of that stuff that can go into food. So I think if we look at food from decades back, that really wasn't there. So food from that point of view was classed as cheap food. Now it's classed as expensive food because of marketing, because of branding, because of selling product. In our 3 simple recommendations, the first one is buy and cook fresh food as much as you can. So number 2
And there was
of our
another thing
recommendations.
there was another thing that I heard on a Dr. Chatterjee podcast, and he was talking about nutrition and processed foods. And he said, if you turn over and read the labeling, if you don't recognize some of the ingredients in it, then you probably shouldn't be eating it. So that was his recommendation.
It's a great recommendation. Yeah, exactly. I think there are people out there championing and talking the same approach as we are, because the world is very much process driven, isn't it? And I think that's a really simple way of being able to interpret a label. So number 2 of our recommendations is get a good range of macronutrients in your diet. And macronutrients are carbohydrate, protein, fats, and fiber. And the reason we say that is because each of them has a major role in supporting your body. And there are trends, or there are types of diets that people promote or that are promoted where you cut them out. And we are saying for a balanced diet, you should include everything in your diet in the correct proportions. So if we think about the plate and the color of the plate and dividing it up into different sections, remember them we used to get at school where they would divide it up into to explain what they were: meats, carbohydrates, vegetables. You can still see what that sort of plate would look like. Again, if we go back to marketed food, it would all look yellow. Now, if we're talking about what we're talking about, it would have color in it because you've got your vegetables. So that gives you your minerals, your proteins, which could be fish, or it could be some sort of meats, and your carbohydrates, which could be, let's take them out of the ground, potatoes, for example. Then they're not the enemy. They have got value in them. Paul, have you got anything to add
Let's
on that?
let's not forget, let's not forget beans, legumes, lentils, all valuable sources of protein and fiber as well. So, yeah, I mean, I'll just echo what you said. Every macronutrient in our diet has a really important part to play, and they interact with each other. And for example, a lot of carbohydrates might have a lot of fiber in them. So it's worth trying to get all of those in your diet somehow. Now, the proportions of them in your diet is, it would be an individualized thing depending on what the needs are and what sector of the population you are. We know that males, females, athletes, older people, children, all different sectors of society will have a different nutritional need. So that's something that, like, we would talk to somebody on an individual basis. But generally, proteins, fats, fiber, carbohydrates, and the micronutrients, vitamins, minerals, all play an essential part in a balanced, healthy diet. And for longevity, for example, we know carbohydrates play a really important role in brain function. So, in terms of longevity, we all want clear cognitive brains into old age. So, you don't want to be dipping out of anything that's going to be of value to you throughout your life. And if I may, I will just quote my father, who was recently 90, and one of my children's partners said, well, what's the secret? 90. My father's a very fit and healthy 90-year-old. And he said, everything in moderation. And I think, well, that's probably about right. Everything in moderation. And that goes in terms of the nutrition that we have. You can have ultra processed food a little bit if you have to and you need to. Have your protein, fats, fiber, but have it in balance. So I thought that was, great thing for him to say.
Well, the voice of experience, 90 years, and he's still fit and healthy. And we'll tell everybody he was up exercising at 7 a.m. on his 90th birthday. So amazing approach, and something we should learn from. And obviously you hit on something there, Paula, about individualization. Obviously, we're not talking about breakfasts or lunch or dinners, because everybody is different. Everybody's needs are different. However, this is simple nutrition. We're keeping this very basic. Even when we're individualizing it, these are the foundations of what we would be working on with somebody. So we're going to go into our third recommendation, which is water. And our stats are, we are 60% water. And we found this really interesting. So no food, if you were to eat no food and drink water, you would last up to a month. However, if you had no food and no water, you would survive around 3 to 7 days. So it shows the importance of water for the human body. And water can be absorbed in a load of different ways. We instantly think of a glass of water, but there's also through your foods and through the type of foods that you can absorb water through as well. There's also hot drinks that you can absorb it through. It's not the cleanest way of hydrating the body because it's obviously got other things in it as well. Water is so simple, and we can go into a little bit the quality of water. Our town locally to us has been having water issues lately. Let's put it that way, where they haven't been able to get water, and some of the water been coming out of the tap hasn't exactly been great for the human to drink. So we can't always trust in the water that comes from our tap because that has got contaminants in it. So we can buy cleaner water. You can get purer water from, depending on where you are in the world. You might be able to get it on your doorstep if you live somewhere that is from a natural spring, for example. But again, that over a lifetime can have an effect on your energy and on your body and on the processes of your body. So Paula, any thoughts on water?
No, nothing to add really, Jimmy. We know it's crucial. One tip that I would give is have a glass of water by your bedside, and before you get out of bed, drink a glass of water, because we dehydrate overnight. Even though you may just think, you're laying in bed sleeping, you are actually dehydrating. So you're giving yourself the best start in the morning if you can, and get a glass of water down you. So yeah, that would be the only thing I would add.
Absolutely, and just the fact of having a bottle next to you, whether you're working at a desk and there's a bottle of water next to you, I certainly find that I create a habit of I'll just have a sip because it's there. It's like if there was a hot drink there, I would probably drink it because it's there. If it's not there, I'm not going to. So just having water around you all the time probably means you're going to drink more water just because it's available. So there are top 3 tips. Now we're pretty serious stuff, isn't it? But we want to make sure that that people listening to this understand our take on food. And I think we can use your dad as a good example here. Everything in moderation. Let's go through food as something that we can experience as well. So, Paul, let's run through what food can bring to our society and bring to us as well.
Your food is there to be enjoyed. It is fuel for our bodies, but the food, a lovely fresh salad can be absolutely delicious. And it's all about context, isn't it? If we can enjoy our food, it should be pleasurable. And sharing food with friends and family that's a great experience. It's a simple thing, and it doesn't have to be complicated food, but it can actually create such a lovely experience. And if you travel around the UK, you're going to experience different local types of food. So, it can create new experiences for us. I mean, I remember when we went to Rome last year, we went to Rome on a business trip, and we booked a food tour of Rome, and it was the street food of Rome. And we ate food we'd never eaten before. It was all absolutely delicious, and it created a really lasting memory. So it can create amazing memories of places that you've been, or, events that have happened. So it can be something that is very pleasurable and fun, and to be shared with special people, as well as the fuel to sort of help us function and perform.
It's a great message, isn't it? Because we can think of it as fuel, and but you're right. There is so much about food to enjoy, and we've got to make sure that we get the balance of food. That we're being good to our bodies. We're giving it what it needs, so it can have a life of health, but also it's all the things you've just listed. And but as you were saying that, we love the outdoors, and a lot of our holidays will be outdoors, and to cook outside and to eat outside is a really amazing experience. It's a real pleasure, really enjoyable. So I think that is the message, isn't it? Is eat what you need to when it's not playtime. Be as kind to your body as you can with your choices, but when it is time to enjoy it or have experiences, enjoy food for everything it brings you. So that's everything that we've got on simple nutrition. Paul, you got anything else to add?
No, not at all. But I did just have a last thought that, food can be demonized, depending on what channel or platform you're looking at. And food is our friend. And I think, I have heard over the years, people have said, oh, I was bad. I had this food. I was naughty. I had this food. And I try and educate and say, well, it's not bad. It was just food. And if you were out celebrating, then that's great. You were out celebrating. When you get back to day-to-day living, where you do need to have good energy and you do need to be able to perform at work or in sport, then you make your choices that are appropriate for that. So we try not to say good and bad food. It's all food. It's actually the choices you make at the appropriate time for what you need at that time. I think that's an important thing to be mindful of.
Thank you, Paula. So we're going to go over what we've been up to and what's coming up. We are running the 2026 Online Health and Wellness Series. Paula, you just hosted our last call. How did that go?
Well, we had some great feedback, and we dug a bit deeper on nutrition. We dug a bit deeper on energy and how we maintain our energy with a really busy schedule. So we covered our 4 pillars, and I think that the people who attended from the feedback got a lot out of it and a lot of food for thought. And somebody said that, the calls are helping them stay on track and keeping them motivated. So it was a great evening.
It was a great call. We've had some great feedback, and just if you've not been on one of these calls before, we dive really deep in them. So there's lots of information to take away for you. And our next call is on the 8th of April, and I'll be hosting. The title is Managing the Digital World, and I'm really excited to host it. I've got some great content in there for you, some really great practical things that we're going to be doing on that call. So if you want to join us, then you can just send us a message just on either on email or get us on social media, and we can make sure you're on that call. The next episode of the podcast, which is going to be our 3rd episode, is titled Stress, Recovery and Modern Life, Why So Many People Feel Exhausted. And we're going to be going into a few insights into how we can help you, and maybe things you can consider on that next call. But that's everything from us. Thank you for joining us. We hope today's conversation gave you something practical to think about and to apply. If you've enjoyed this episode, then don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel or follow us wherever you're listening to this podcast. And if you think this would be of benefit to somebody else, please share this podcast with them. If you'd like to learn more about us, then you can visit us at georgecoaching.com. You'll find all the links down below on our notes for this podcast. Thanks again for being here with us. We appreciate you spending this time with us, and we'll see you next time.